the walk up toward Southsea Castle, which is here in Portsmouth on the south coast. So these here are the royal arms of Charles II, and they are to commemorate improvements to the castle made in about 1683 under the direction of Bernard de Gaume, Charles's chief military engineer. Southsea Castle was commissioned and built by Henry VIII as part of his defences on the south coast to defend against the French. And here we can see Henry here. It was built in, so this was built in 1544. Welcome to Southsea Castle. It's an ancient monument. Please do not sit on the cannon. I have no doubt that's what that says. Please do not climb on the cannon. So this was, what's the word I'm looking for? So this particular cannon was made in 1854. It's a 24-pound bronze gun salvaged from the Royal George, a 100-gun warship which sank in the Solent in 1782. So it wasn't made in 1854 at all. That first part was a lie. The gun was salvaged from the wreck site in the 1830s. Collection above a cannon, which would have been on ships at some stage. So unfortunately the ramparts are going through some kind of renovation, so we can't go and have a wander along those. You can see here the pits where the big swivel guns would have been mounted. And this is the keep in the centre. So this whole part is a medieval fortress which would have been changed and upgraded throughout the years until it would have eventually been decommissioned, probably. So apparently, this is a reconstruction of the original well that was built against the side of the original Tudor curtain wall, which we've got a section of here. Made of chalk, it is a simple pulley block with an oak bracket bound to counterbalance by flint. The well was abandoned in 1814 and replaced by a new reservoir underneath the West Bailey. So this is a recreation of what the castle would have looked like when it was built in 1544. And here is Henry himself, with his flag, with the Tudor rose and the fleur-de-lis. Not fleur-de-lis, because they would be French. So this here is the Mary Rose. The Mary Rose is an important ship. And it was brought up from the Solent in the 1980s. I remember it being brought up on the TV at the time, and at the time they seemed to suggest that it sunk on its maiden voyage, but that's not the case at all. So this here is two of the links from the chain boom, and this is a chain that ran across the harbour entrance. which you can see here from this illustration. It protected the harbour entrance, and the chain boom ran from Portsmouth to Gosport of the Battle of the Solent, which happened on the 19th of July 1945. Now this, over here in section 1, we can see the French fleet that were trying to invade England. It was much larger than the Spanish Armada of 1588. However, it is much less well known. Up to 5,000 troops. So here, number 2, you can see, push number 2 and the light will light up, or maybe not. You can see that there was enemy on the Isle of Wight. Up to 5,000 enemy troops had already landed on the Isle of Wight. They are shown here retreating after setting fire to Bembridge. Number 3, which is down here, is the English army. Henry VIII had spies and he knew the French were coming, so he had a small army ready in camp on Southsea Common, which is just close to where we are now. 4 is the French galleys. Early on the day of the battle, there would not have been much wind, so these ships using oars could come in and fight before sailing ships could move. 5 is where we stood now, which is Southsea Castle. Henry VIII finished building this castle in 1544. When they say he finished building it, I mean, the likelihood is he didn't lay the final stone, he just told someone else to do it and paid for it. Number 6 is the Mary Rose sinking. The favourite warship of Henry VIII had just sunk, and the top of its main mast can still be seen above the water. Over 500 men died. And here, in number 7, is King Henry VIII himself, pictured here on horseback. So here in section 8, we can see the Henri Grâce à Dieu, which was a large ship of over 1,000 tons and was the flag sheet of the fleet at the time of the battle. Henry dined on board this the day before. Number 9 is the English fleet. There were only about 70 vessels in this fleet, with only 20 ships over 400 tons. Some are at anchor, others are sailing out of the harbour. 10 is the Square Tower, dating from 1494. This tower was built to defend the harbour entrance. In later years it became a powder store for the town. 11 is Portsmouth Cathedral. St Thomas's Cathedral is still on the same site, and the original church was built in 1185 and dedicated to Thomas Becket. 12 is the Round Tower, which is still a landmark today at the entrance to the harbour. This tower is a popular viewing platform for families welcoming ships home. And 13 is forts on the Gosport side. Southsea Castle was just one of many forts along the coast. 3 more can be seen here, including Blockhouse and Hazelworth. 14 was the chain capstan. The capstan was used to raise a chain and protect the entrance to the harbour, but the chain seems to be missing. Oh dear. And 15 is Portsmouth Harbour itself. Small ships can be seen in the Camber Dock. Henry VII built the first dry dock here in 1495, and it soon became home of the Navy. So these are some mortars. These are small, short-barreled weapons that are used to target enemies hidden behind obstacles, because they would fire up in the air and then come crashing down on top of people. This here is a Tudor gun in action. It's a typical of the type of cannon that would have been used at Southsea Castle during the Tudor period. It's a breech loading gun, meaning that it was loaded at the rear of the barrel. This type of gun was inaccurate and unreliable compared to later weapons. And quite often they blew up and killed the gun crew. You can see here, this one has had a bit of an accident. So this here shows us some of the things that were discovered during renovation work to the castle. And in the original Tudor well, it contained 8 stone cannonballs, 2 pottery flasks, part of an oak stave bucket and wooden pulley block, and several large flint pebbles and natural perforations, which were used as a counterweight for the bucket. This map here shows all of Henry VIII's the castles in the south coast that he commissioned, including down here in St Maur's and Pendennis. Now, I'm going to go and see St Maur's in the summer, all the way across to Yarmouth on the Isle of Wight, and Cowes and Sandown. Sandown Port. Sandown Castle is now the site of a zoo. I've been to Yarmouth Castle as well, and then Southsea, which we can see, which is where we are now. Along here we can see Camber, which is near Camber Sands. Sandgate, Dover, which is one of my favourite castles. And then Walmer, Deal and Sandown, and then all the way up to Tilbury Fort and Gravesend. Now, Deal, I've been to Deal and Walmer. Walmer Castle, I believe, is the castle that was home to the Duke of Wellington after Waterloo. So as we mentioned earlier, this castle, Southsea Castle, was built by Henry VIII for his request as a scheme of fortifications to defend the south coast and the Solent. Southsea Castle was actually built in 1544 to 1545. So with a year-long build time, that's a lot less than some builds that we have nowadays. The greatest changes came in the 19th century, in 1814, when the castle was enlarged to house over 200 men, and the north section of the curtain wall was rebuilt to create enough space for these brick-based rooms. So these bits here are additions to the fort from a later point to create more firepower to project across the Solent. And if you look up here, what you can see down, these are the defences that the guns would have sat in. Can you imagine how big these guns would have been? They would have protected this strait between the English Channel and the fabulous Isle of Wight. So over there in the middle of the Solent, you have one of these forts that were built during the Napoleonic era. Now, I'm sure not too long ago one of these was up for sale, and you could go and live there if you really wanted to. If that's true, I will leave a link in the description. There are two more forts. Here's the first one over here, and here's the third. And there's the hovercraft coming back from Ryde with the Union flag on the front. Or is it a Union Jack because it's actually on a boat? Who knows? That, coming off the side is the Cross Channel ferry. It goes to... I don't know. I actually haven't got a clue. It goes somewhere in Normandy, I know that. Oh no, it probably goes to Brittany. The clue's on the side of the ferry, Darren. It goes to Brittany. So this here is a 9-inch Armstrong Fraser gun of 12 tons that was introduced in 1868. This is the first heavy rifled muzzle loading guns to go into general service. This pattern was based on a new principle of construction from wrought iron sections devised by Sir W. Armstrong and adapted by Mr. Fraser of the Royal Gun Factory. Guns of this type formed a major part of the heavy armament of the Palmerston forts, built from the 1860 onwards. This piece is from a battery on the Isle of Wight defending the Needles. So it had a very important life defending the Isle of Wight, which is by far the best place in the world. You have been watching Munchy Road Hippopotamus. Follow us on Twitter at Munchy Road and on Instagram at Munchy Road Hippopotamus. Don't forget to like, subscribe and add a comment. All these good things help us defeat the evil that is the YouTube algorithm.